Hey y'all, happy Monday. Welcome to another week of Daily Devos. As always, I'm excited about what we're going to get into this week, and we should be finishing out our Shoes of Peace, shoring up what has been weeks of study on that part of the armor of God, but so rich and so deep. And so next week, the plan, depending on how far we get this week, is to start the Shield of Faith. So I'm excited about all of those things. Today, I want to tie into where we left off last week. To be quite honest, I record these and then I listen to them along with you during the week. And the more I listened to them last week, the more I needed to write notes down of things that I wanted to share with you that came to mind, again, as I was listening to the Word, because you know, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the Word, and every time we hear the Word, He peels back another layer of Himself. So, as I was listening to the Word, again, there just was more revelation. So, a couple of things that I want to share with you, just because it was clear to me. Anyway, I'm going to share with you. So, we talked last week about Philippians 4, 6, 7, and we did not get into 8, but we will get into it. And remember, I told you about my ferns, right? And the birds would kill my ferns because they kept trying to build a nest and make a home, and that's where they were going to live. And Mom and I having the conversation about thoughts, because I really had to battle with thoughts over delivering Caleb, and towards the end of the pregnancy, it was an assault and bombardment. And so she and I would talk about the things in the process, and she said, you can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can keep it from building a nest. So the bird would be like the thoughts. So a bird's gonna fly, you can't determine its course, but you can prevent it from building a thought in your head. And so with the ferns, and I keep doing this because my window's right here, and that's where my ferns are, but every time, this was this year, so in the spring, every time those birds, they were mean birds, hateful birds, they would try to build a nest in the ferns, Dustin would pull the nest out. We never did anything with eggs. They didn't have eggs in it, so we weren't hurting the birds. And honestly, to tell you the truth, they killed my first 2 ferns. So I replaced ferns on the porch. But because we did not get the nest out, and we did allow those birds to build a home and build a nest in our ferns, they killed the ferns. And I know that sounds kind of silly or foolish, like what in the world is she talking about? Where are we going today? But it's that same principle with thoughts and from hell, you know, thoughts full of fear, thoughts of anxiety, worry, fretting, thoughts not of peace, so misery, distresses, frustrations, all of those things that we have talked about in the Shoes of Peace. When we take on those thoughts and we allow them to make a home in our minds, so like my ferns, the longer they continue there, the more settled they become, the more ingrained in, we'll call it a host even, but because those nests were very involved in the ferns, again, sucked the life out of the ferns. The birds tore up the leaves of my ferns. So those birds in their nest really took over and did damage to my plants. And the same thing happens with us and our thought life and our minds. When we allow those thoughts to come in and we don't push them back, we don't take them captive and make them submit to the authority of Christ, where, you know, Paul says, take every thought captive under the authority of Christ. When we don't do that, then they become ingrained, and they take hold, develop roots, begin to live and grow and feed, and before we know it, really, it begins to kill faith, because of course we're feeding that thought. So I wanted to share that with you, because as I was listening to it, I didn't think I shared that part, but the birds killed the ferns. And so the same thing happens to us with negative thoughts and worry and anxiety. If we allow them to stay, if we allow them to dwell, if we continue to think on them and we continue to meditate on them without putting the Word of God over it, you know that He says He would supply all my needs. I have nothing to fear. Perfect love casts out all fear. God is love. He would protect me. Go into Psalm 91. Whatever the thought is of fear, you find the word to put on top of it. And because if we don't, it will bring death. And the Lord has given us everything we need to get rid of those thoughts and to conquer those thoughts. But it's up to us to do that. And so I wanted to share that with you before we move on in these verses. And so I will see y'all again tomorrow. Bye.